Someone just sent me a message and says, Eclipse, kill trades are back in the new update. This is not a drill. Kill trade?
We gotta do a kill trade.
Kill trade?
Come on.
Kill trade?
Hey, we gotta do a kill trade.
Well, holy hot damn. They did it again. We are 3 for 3. And that's not a joke. Seriously, YBA just keeps dishing out bangers and I really can't believe it. Was it actually just this simple the entire time? This whole thing is just proof that Uzuki is the most incompetent game owner on the history of the planet. All he had to do was give creative freedom to literally anybody that gave a shit, and we would have been in an infinitely better spot than the dumpster fire we've been in for the last, 2 years. That's insanity. Anyways, as much as I would love to make an entire video just shitting on Uzuki, I actually want to talk about the good things that are in this update and how I can finally be positive about YBA again, which I know is starting to become a trend, and I really genuinely hope it continues to be one. I used to love this game, and then they took a lot of the things that I loved about it and threw it into the dumpster. And now coming back, it's like I can have fun playing again. Sure, it's definitely not the same YBA that we're used to, but it's certainly better than what I would call Neo YBA, which is effectively the YBA where everything had 600 moves, you got 800 infinite combos that could kill you in one hit, and people just mashing every single button on their keyboard in order to win. The age of Neo YBA is gone, and good riddance. Now, the main draw of this most recent update is, of course, Shadow the World, and I have a lot to say about it. But first, before we get to Shadow the World, I think it's more poignant to cover all of the other things that they did in this update that I think were impactful. Now, granted, there are obviously a lot of things that I still haven't used, so I just really won't be touching on everything, but it's mostly just giving my thoughts on things. The first notable thing is the fact that the time stop global cooldown was halved, and the time stop global cooldown is something that I've always sort of had a problem with. I don't like the idea that you just can't use your move because someone else used it earlier, but I do understand why it's there, and having a global cooldown in of itself isn't necessarily bad, but having it be really, really long sucks. And so I think literally cutting it in half is great, but I also wish that it was actually visual on your screen so you really knew how long you had to wait. This whole invisible cooldown thing just kinda sucks. The other big one with the update is the removal of time stop rage requirements. Finally, 4 years in the goddamn making, and we made it. I can use the world, the stand whose sole ability is stopping time and stop time. Holy shit. I had so much fun using the world, I can't even describe. I was just big ol' smile the entire time. I had a great time. Don't choke, I'm angry. Don't choke, I'm mad, Zawado! Well, better luck next time. Ooh!
Just walk through that final hit.
Oh man, this is great. Would you like off my wild ride? Too bad!
Mr. Bones, let me off the wild ride.
Here you go, here's some knives, free of charge. Ooh! It's like a big old weight was lifted off my shoulders. A weight that's been there for 4 years, and it's gone. Now, this wasn't all positive. I think it was kind of extremely questionable that they decided to make it so if you max out the time stops for the world, and I believe Star Platinum as well, and I assume probably the world alternate universe, that their time stop is like 9 seconds long, which for those who are very savvy and have been around for a very long time, you'll know that that was how long the time stops were when you used to be able to bug them and not use your rage, and so I assume it was probably a carryover from that. But I can't help but feel like there's no reason why fully upgrading these should give you a 9-second time stop, and none of these stands even need 9-second time stops, so all it really does is sort of slow the pace of the game to a crawl. If someone uses one of these near you, you're just stuck, even if you're not involved, and that kind of sucks. And considering that there's now the damage cap of 40% in time stop, it's not like you would ever reasonably need this amount of time to do 40% of someone's health, and if they have time stop resistance, there's a very good chance that you're barely doing any damage anyway. So a longer amount of time that you have isn't all that helpful. At the end of the day though, it just feels so good to just push the button and have the move come out. It's fantastic. On a final little note of nitpicks, I think this is something that pretty much everyone has noticed by this point, and I'm surprised they haven't fixed it yet, but the window for canceling time stops is very clearly bugged. I'm pretty sure that the window you have to cancel it is still identical to what it was way back when they made it so that time stops took longer to come out. And so even though they take longer to come out, if you don't cancel it in the original window, which was very short, you can hit somebody while they're activating a time stop, and then like a second after you hit them, the time stop goes off anyway, which is incredibly stupid. There were some changes to Crazy Diamond that I haven't really gotten a chance to take a look at. I know Crazy Diamond has seen mixed reviews since the initial big balance pass, so I'm hoping these will help out Crazy Diamond. There are a lot of people saying it was useless, but again, I really haven't gotten a chance to mess with it. Now, the other big thing aside from the time stop stuff that I wanted to talk about on the patch notes was mostly the changes to Vampire, because as annoying as some of this stuff was, I really don't think they should have changed it. Vampire basically got hit with a big old nerf that I really don't think it needed. Space Ripper got its cooldown lowered and also takes less time to come out, but with the trade-off of it being blockable now. And it being blockable almost sort of writes it out of the game. Even with the reduced windup, it is extremely easy to block. And what this now means is Vampire doesn't have a block bypass or block break at all. Well, I guess technically we can count Superhuman Barrage's final hit, but that's effectively a kick barrage, and you need to actually hope that the guy stands there and blocks the whole barrage and the final hit, and the odds of that are next to zero. Let's be real here. Vampire doesn't have anything to deal with block. And so they took away Space Ripper's ability to deal with block, and now it has none. I can't be the only one that didn't think that the Space Ripper Stingy Eyes were overpowered. They did like 16 damage and you could dash to put out the fire immediately. Sure, it was annoying, I'll give you that. But was it so annoying that it needed to be nerfed into oblivion and totally write the spec out of the game? Yeah, I don't know about that one. And speaking of the Superhuman Barrage, they also increased the windup time for that? And why? Why are we nerfing Vampire? Vampire was, like, very clearly not colossally overpowered. What are we doing here? I don't know. I was scratching my head the whole time with this. My friend Ghost plays a lot of Vampire, and before the update, he would see modicums of success, and after the update, it pretty much just immediately took a nosedive because, well, trying to deal with a blocking player with Vampire, you can't. And it's even more perplexing because Vampire is clearly intended to be directly synergized with the most recent stand added to the game, Shadow of the World. You can get an upgrade on Shadow of the World that makes it so your M1 attacks give you blood if you're a vampire. Except for the fact that Vampire has no block breaks, and neither does Shadow of the World. So if you use that, you just lose to blocking. Which, oh boy, does that segue us into Shadow of the World. Speaking of if they decide to block, good luck, that's this whole stand. So Shadow of the World is an extremely interesting case, because when it first came out, it was fucking horrible. No way around it. This thing was horrendously bad. If you used it against anyone with a inkling of a brain cell, you lost immediately. Not only did this thing do less damage than the World, the stand that you needed to evolve it from, but also its M1 hitboxes were smaller than every other stand in the game. Now, if you've played this game, you'll know that M1s are really important, and you'll also know that if you're fighting somebody that has higher M1 range, it is a death sentence. Just end all be all. You will win 0 trades, lose every M1 trade, and considering how important M1s are, you just lose. Now, we couple that with the fact that every single move that Shadow of the World has is blockable, and every single move that Shadow of the World has, aside from its knives and technically its stand combo, although that's sort of a barrage, we'll talk about it later, is also cancelable. So if somebody mashes on the Shadow of the World player, they can't do shit. And if you try to play Whiff Punish with Shadow of the World, you also can't do shit, because they can block everything you have, and you have less range. So basically, your options with Shadow of the World were nothing. They were nothing. You just lost. Now, the night that the update had come out, I was playing it again with my buddy Ghost, who I mentioned earlier, along with a few of my other friends. And Ghost decided that it would be a great idea to go into the Clips community server, into a private channel that hosts a whole bunch of sort of VIP people, including Paragon, and pinged him in there basically saying, hey, Shadow of the World sucks ass. And I didn't plan on talking about it. I was just gonna leave it until I put out my video talking about the update, but after some of the things Paragon said, I just couldn't help myself. M1 based stand. You can't use M1s. Yeah, that's a problem. This is like the greatest statement that aged poorly anyway, because this is a heavily combo based stand, not an M1 based stand. So I don't know where this notion came from, but even now it's just wrong. So obviously a very long conversation ensued about Shadow of the World, and thankfully at the end of it all, the day afterwards, Shadow of the World got a buff and made it not hyper ass. Thank God. Unfortunately, the results of it no longer being hyper ass was actually the exact opposite. Now instead of being hyper ass, it's really, really, really strong. Almost certainly too strong. What did they do to it? Well, they made it so that the M1 damage was increased, so that's a good thing. They made it so the M1 hitboxes are the same as other stands, or actually technically better than other stands. I'll be talking about that more in a second. They decreased the punish window if you whiff stand combo or it gets blocked. They decreased the windup for heavy chop and also made its hitbox a little bit bigger. They decreased the windup on the counter as well as doing some other stuff that didn't matter because counters with windups will always be bad, and we'll be once again talking about that in a second. They decreased the windup time for punishment as well as the hitbox increase. And they also increased the amount of damage that punishment does, including its upgrades. Oh, and they made it so that time switch actually has a range that isn't 2 feet in front of it. I didn't talk about that earlier, but prior to the update, you had to be practically on top of somebody to use the time switch move, which swaps you with them. Time switch is already mostly a useless move that's extremely niche, and yeah, having no range certainly doesn't help. I honestly think that it could use even more range than it has right now, but that's just me. Anyways, all of those buffs resulted in this. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't played, Shadow of the World's barrage is not like other barrages. The way it works is when you use it, it hits the opponent and then it sort of combos them forwards. And while this is happening, you can use any other move in your tool set excluding punishment, which has its own cooldown. The reason, of course, being that your stand is currently hitting the opponent, so you can't use another move that requires your stand. Now, the issues arise from the fact that you can now use stand combo, throw knives at a specific timing, and then true combo into punishment, effectively making it so this is a stand that you can barrage somebody and deal half their health. Yeah, you heard that right. Barrage somebody and deal half their HP. Uh-oh. On top of all that, it now has the best M1s in the game because its M1s actually work, on top of them doing good damage. And the issue doesn't stop there, because this time stop. Oh my god, this time stop. This is like everything wrong with YBA time stops amplified by 20. So somebody thought it would be a grand idea to give a time stop that basically has zero windup. You'll almost never see this coming, and you're sure as hell not gonna cancel it. While in time stop, Shadow of the World is able to throw its knives with effectively zero cooldown. You can throw so many knives that you're all but guaranteed to hit that 40% damage cap. I think you probably see where this is going, because guess what? The time stop has a 30-second cooldown. That's half the cooldown of like every other time stop in the game. And it does the same thing, and it's near instant. Uh-oh. Oh, and did I mention the fact that no matter who you are, if you have time stop resistance, you get to walk through the whole thing. That's right, we're doing this again. Every single stand that has time stop resistance is immune to this, but every single stand that doesn't gets 40% of their health chunked away instantly. And that's why I said it's everything wrong with YBA's time stops. If you're going up against something that has TS resist, you do nothing. If you're going up against something that doesn't have TS resist, you obliterate it. That's terrible. And the problem stems from time stop resistance. I'm just gonna give you a frigid Antarctic take. Time stop resistance either shouldn't exist at all, or if it's gonna exist, it should be as long as the current time stop resistance for Shadow of the World. Shadow of the World has TS resist, but it's extremely short. And this is the way it should be for everything. It lets you potentially jump or maybe do something to try to avoid the time stop, but not walk 7 feet away or literally run through the entire time stop. It's just so incredibly ass backwards how this time stop stuff works. So yeah, if you're playing against Shadow of the World and you don't have time stop resistance, you can expect to lose 40% of your health immediately right at the start of the fight to the time stop, and then probably the rest of your 60% of your health killed away by a barrage. Man, that's fucking awesome. Like, listen, I know it was bad before, but I think we overcorrected a little bit here. Now granted, I think the overcorrection actually stems from just how much damage this stand does, and I don't even know if that was an overcorrection. I think that was just a screw up from the very start. Maybe it was off of the assumption that not all of these comboing moves would combo into each other, and when they reduced the windups and increased the stun on a lot of this stuff, it made it combo better. But I really think that the stand just globally needs to lose some of its damage. I don't think messing with the stun or any of that is a good idea, because it's very clear that Shadow of the World is supposed to be a sort of auto combo stand, and I think it losing all of that would not make it feel any better to play. If anything, it would make it feel worse to play. It feels great to play right now, it's just way too strong. If it took you 4 or 5 barrages to kill somebody, that'd probably be a lot better than 2 of them. That gives somebody a lot more leeway to work with when trying to deal with you. Anyways, the final note on Shadow of the World is, of course, the counter. God, please no. So you remember how I said I was talking to Paragon about this stand in that chat a little while ago? Well, he also made mention of the counter, and how he wants the counters to all act like this one. No, 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 we're going back? For those of you who were part of the dark ages of counters in YBA, they fucking sucked. Yeah, there was a point in time where they thought it was a grand idea to give like over 80 frames of windup to all of the counters in the game, which made them basically worthless. Unless you randomly threw out the counter for no reason and hoped somebody hit you, or you were fighting somebody with an extremely long wind-up predictable move, you just couldn't use your counter. This is an M1 based game, so you'd think that the counter would be better at dealing with M1s, but they were the worst at dealing with that. Someone's going for an untrue combo, use the counter, oh wait, you can't. It doesn't work that way. And that's exactly how Shadow of the World's counter works, even after they lowered the wind-up time. It doesn't matter. In its current state, Shadow of the World's counter is just so backwards, because its punish window basically doesn't exist, which means that the way you use it is just what I said, either an extremely high wind-up move, or you just throw it out in neutral. And it has such a low punishment window that throwing it out in neutral is basically free. I understand why people get upset about frame 1 counters, especially because people love to press buttons, and they really don't like when someone presses a button that makes it so they can't just push every button and mash buttons. But here's the thing, the way you combat that is by making it so that way if you do bait out a counter, that you get a really good punish off of it. That, or you make the counter not that strong, so that way if you are mashing buttons and someone uses a counter to make it so you're not mashing buttons anymore, you don't get totally screwed by it. But unfortunately, this design philosophy is clearly not shared by Paragon, and yeah, for those of you who have a tendency of using counter stands, I'm sorry in advance. I don't really use counter stands that much, but I know that when I did, especially during the YBA counter dark ages, oh god, it sucked. So I don't envy you guys, but you've got dark days ahead from the looks of it. Now anyways, the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to YBA and the update is I want to talk about M1s, because this has been a bit of a hot button issue as of late, and I think we can fix it. I really, really do. That's right. We're back in the age of Eclipse actually thinking he might be able to make a difference for once in his life. I might not be screaming into a void. Holy shit. Alright, so M1s. I've been told that the reason that M1s don't work properly is because The hitbox that is attached to your stand has momentum applied to it, and so when you attack the first time, you get a slightly longer range than the M1 is supposed to have. Now, me personally, I think whatever this slightly longer range is actually the ideal range for all of your M1 attacks, but honestly, that's kind of neither here nor there. What I'm getting at here is Shadow of the World's new increased M1 range doesn't have this problem. So that tells us something. The stand is the problem. As of right now, M1s and YBA just don't work. Plain and simple. And playing a game where your attacks don't work, yeah, that's not great. But I think we can fix this. And I think that the way we fix this is by making it so that way your M1 attacks are no longer tied to the stand. If we can look at Shadow of the World and see that you can tie hitboxes to the player themselves, surely there's a way to tie the hitboxes of M1s to the player themselves on everything and just run the animation for the stand. I don't know the code of YBA, I don't know if it's impossible, but I'm doing my best here because M1s don't work. I mean, I don't know what else to say. And on the topic of things not working, barrage trades also do not work. They have never worked in the history of the entire game. For some reason, Barrage has knockback on it. And I have to ask, why does Barrage have knockback on it? All that Barrage having knockback serves to do is make it so if you're barraging someone and they barrage back, they have a chance of falling out of it. Show of hands, how many people have had a person fall out of their barrage while barraging back in YBA? Oh, is that everybody? Yeah, we all know this is a problem. There has got to be a way to remove the knockback on Barrage. There has to be. Paragon said something about the Road Roller knockback being also set to the amount of knockback that Barrage has. My only assumption at that point is maybe if a move is set to have 0 knockback, it defaults to a value. So maybe just set the knockback to 0.001? I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But these are solutions to long-time problems that I really hope get fixed because it'll just make the game better. And that's why I started my channel. I started my channel to make YBA a better game. And I got ignored, and I got ignored, and I got ignored some more, and I gave up. And here we are, foolishly, I'm trying again. And I hope this time I don't have to give up. Anyways, with that being said, we're done here. I've gone on long enough. If you enjoyed the video, you can of course leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.